Alright, so welcome to this video. In the previous video, we already spoke about the brush tool, and now we're going to talk about the other tool sets, or rather, the other tools in the brush tool sets. Okay, very quickly, we'll talk about the pencil tool. Okay, directly under that brush tool set where you have your brush tool, you have your pencil tool. Okay, so now we're going to click on the pencil tool. Now, in order to bring up this image, just go to your resources folder and open the resource titled hatchback. Hatchback, that's the name of this picture, hatchback. Okay, so now the first thing I want us to do is, now the pencil tool is very similar to the brush tool. Very similar. When you launch your pencil tool, I want you to realize is that it's so similar with the brush tool, but I'll just show you the subtle differences and where you can use them. So for the pencil tool, when you launch it, you most likely get this as your default, 1 pixel. This will most likely be your default. 1 pixel will be a default, right, with 100% hardness, right? So usually the pencil tool selects one line of pixel. So that 1 pixel, what it means is that it selects one line of pixel. You can see as we're drawing this, let me zoom in so you see it better, right? Uh, okay, that's so when we draw this, you see, it selects one line pixel, right? So you could also increase the size. So let's increase the size a lot larger. This is like about, let's take it about 200 pixels. This 101 pixels. So here's your pencil tool. Okay, we're drawing with the pencil tool right now. Now, let me show you. So this is, like I said, it's very similar to the brush tool. This is the pencil tool at 200 pixels. So now let me show you the pencil tool. The pencil tool also has a hardness, but now let's reduce this hardness to 0. You know, when we're working with the brush tool, if we reduce the hardness to 0, we know what it looks like. But now for the pencil tool, let's reduce the hardness to 0 and let's see what it makes. Can you see this? This is the hardness on 100 and this is the hardness on 0%. Basically no difference. Now let me show you how the brush, let's do the same thing for the brush tool. Select your brush tool. Let's make it 200 pixels or 201 pixels for uniformity. Now let's make our hardness 100. Okay, so this is the brush tool. This is from the brush tool. Now let's make our hardness 0% and then draw. Can you see that? With a hardness of 100%, of 0%, your brush tool more or less fades out at the edges, while your pen tool, regardless of the hardness, it still remains the same with rigid edges. Okay, that's basically the difference between your brush tool and your pencil tool. Your pencil tool has rigid edges all through, irrespective of the hardness, while your brush tool fades out. Like your brush tool is for more your brush tool, like I said, is actually more flexible than your pencil tool. Allows you to do a lot more when compared to your pencil tool. Usually, I barely use the pencil tool, but it's just a tool you should get acquainted with. A lot of times when you're doing illustrations, for instance, you just scan in an image you drew, you want to paint, you, you scan in an image you drew and you want to paint, you could make use of the pen tool to outline it before you paint inside of it. So those are just some of the applications of the pen tool, right? So the pen tool is just pretty straightforward, nothing much, no long story about the pen tool. Okay, so I want us to go back and delete this. Let's take it to the initial picture. Good. So that's that about the pen tool. Really, there's really nothing much to say about the pen tool. It's basically like your brush tool, but as you can see, it's a lot more rigid than your brush tool, right? Now, there's also what we know as the color replacement tool. The color replacement tool is also another very interesting tool you would like to know in Photoshop. Now, have you seen pictures where someone just uses Photoshop to change the color of someone's clothes or just change the color of something in Photoshop, that is exactly what you do with the color replacement tool. Alright, so we want to change the color of this car to a green. So let me just choose the green from here. Right, so I want to change it to this green. This green, okay? Now that's where the color replacement tool comes into play. So that's where the color replacement tool comes into play. Now, if you can see here, my foreground color is already the green. So if I click and drag, you can see that it's already taking shape. Okay, if I click and drag, you can see it's changing the color. But then this brush size is small, so let me increase it. This way you increase the size of the color replacement tool. So let's increase it to say let's say a lot bigger. So 100 is still a little small. Okay, good. This is good enough. So what this tool does is that it changes the color of what you particularly click it on. If you look at this tool properly, you'll see there is a plus sign in the middle of the circle. Now that plus sign is where it's taking its color from. Okay, now first things first, let's duplicate this layer with Ctrl J. Okay, so now I want to change the color of this car to green. So first of all, it's important to zoom in. Okay, now we're going to click and start changing. Notice where this plus sign is at. Right, notice where the plus sign is at. This would be changed. This would be on contiguous. For yours, when it comes to limits, leave your limits on contiguous. That's what I use most of the time. Right, and then your tolerance would be 30%. 30% tolerance. Usually I leave it on 30% tolerance. Right, that's usually the safest. So when you click and start drawing, click and start painting rather, you could see that the color of the car is changing. Right, just click and paint. Pretty simple. Click and paint. The color of the car is changing. Okay, it's pretty a very easy, it's a very easy tool to use. Now if you notice, even though I'm moving here, the outside is not being painted. It's just the blue of the car that is selected because the plus sign is on the blue. If you notice, the plus up here is on the blue, so nothing outside of it is being painted. Okay, nothing outside of it is being painted. That's because my plus sign is on the blue color. Okay, so that's one thing to take note of. It would really help you. So you just click and paint over. Just paint over. You know, this is very different from the brush tool you're used to, because the brush tool would change the color of everything. Now let me show you the difference. Now if you click on your brush tool to paint, look at what happens. You see, look at what happens. You paint here, look at what happens with your brush tool. While your color replacement tool, okay, just paints over it, more or less what we call a non-destructive painting. Just changes the colors neatly. Okay, changes the colors neatly. That's how your color replacement tool works. Okay, so now you have to zoom in properly. You have to zoom in properly so as to get the edges. For instance, places like this, you just click, right? Also, you could reduce the size of the brush. When you get to some parts, you reduce the size. Okay, now you see, no matter how hard I try to paint over these parts, you see it's taking so much time, it's not painting. What I do in this case is I just increase the tolerance to 100. When I come here, it paints easily. Okay, this side paints easily. Okay, you see all these other parts inside that weren't painting initially, they just get to paint easily when I increase the tolerance to 100. Okay, so think of tolerance the same way you think of all the other tolerance in other aspects that I've told you, in other tools that I've told you. Tolerance is just the amount of color it can take, right? So when you have a lower tolerance, let's say 8%, and you come here, right, you notice that it's not taking in as much color as you want it to. Okay, it's not taking in as much color. But then when I increase the tolerance here to let's make it 30%. Okay, or you know what, let's just make it 100. So you see if I increase tolerance here to 100%, you can see it's painting up more spaces. It's more tolerant. It's painting up more colors than I expect. Okay, so now that's with tolerance. So you could just keep working on this. Ensure you take your time to change the color of this car to the color you want it to be. Okay, right. So let's go on. So you zoom in, zoom in. Let me reduce the brush size here. Okay, zoom into these places. Okay. So there you go. We're done. Successfully changed the color of this car from this to this. So that's the power of Photoshop. That's the power of the color replacement tool. Very easy tool to use, and also very straight to the point. Okay, good. So another tool we're going to be looking at is a tool directly under the color replacement tool. Is called the mixer brush tool. The mixer brush tool is just like your normal brush tool. The mixer brush tool is just like a normal brush tool, and for that we're going to be using this picture. It's called nightlife. So just open the nightlife picture on from your resources folder. Let me explain some. It's very pretty straightforward, but let me just explain some things about it to you. Now, the mixer tool has what you call wet, load, and mix. Okay, rather wet. On the property panel of the mixer tool, you have wet, load, mix, and flow. In order not to bore you so much, right? In order not to bore you so much, let me duplicate this background first. In order not to bore you so much, I'll just tell you that when you manipulate each of these values, right? For now, here's what we have, right? You can see we're trying to draw is not so clear. It's not so clear. Good. What it does, what the mixer brush tool does is that it mixes the foreground color and the background color. So now when the wet is on 100%, that means the very wet brush, you see that is mixing it very well. But now when the wet is on 0%, let's see. Okay, so let's keep all the others. Let's keep the mix to 100%. Let's keep the load to 75. Let's say a you see, so a wet of 100% just shows you a wet of 0% just shows you the foreground color only. While when the wet is increased to say 100%, you see that it 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 sort of mixes a lot of okay. But, so also one of the things I want to show you about the one of the things I want to show you about the mixer brush tool is this. You could select a particular area, a portion of your work. For instance, you see this, I could select this portion, and now to select this portion, I hold down the Alt key and click. Hold down the Alt key and click, right? So let me paint it here so you see what we have. Sorry. Now watch. If I hold down the Alt key and click, take a look at this point. It has changed. You know, formerly it was your green, right? It was green color formerly. You see it's green now. So when we hold down the Alt key and click, it changes to this. If we start to paint, okay, let's reduce our wetness to 1. So if we start to paint, you can see it paints that color on it. So we could then decide to do this. Can you see that? That part that we picked is just replicated. Okay, let's change our width to say 63%. You could see what we're doing. It allows us play around. It allows us play around with, you see, just by reducing the width. So basically for a mixer brush tool, you're going to have to play around it, play around. Also the flow, let's reduce the flow. Just play around your mixer brush tool. It's one of those things that although I don't frequently use it in Photoshop, I don't frequently use it, but the very interesting feature, alternate click, and then you can just paste it on alternate click, and then you can paint that same let's reduce the width, and you can paint that same thing you have already picked up, alternate click, paint that same thing you have picked up somewhere else. So that's really that about the mixer brush tool, right? It's quite flexible, unlike your normal brush tool. It's very flexible, allows you to do some allows you to do to a very large extent some magical things that you wouldn't do on a normal brush. Allows you to work with two different brushes at the same time. So that's that about your mixer brush tool. It's somewhat different from your normal brush tool. You could select, it allows you, it's a lot flexible in terms of the number of colors you could use, in terms of selecting a color from your work and playing around. Okay, although I don't very much use the mixer brush tool, but it's an important tool, depends on what you're doing. So having done with the brush set tools, the next tool we're going to is a very interesting tool. Have you seen places where you just see someone's head duplicated somewhere else, or like basically maybe you see a duplicate of a person? That's what we're going to talk about in the next tool, and the tool is known as Clone Stamp tool. See you in the next video. Thank you.